So all of you probably know the situation that there's a genre or a certain style in a genre that has a certain sound. And even though so many people are using the sound, you kind of feel like, how do they all know? Why don't I know? How does it work? It's okay, I'm going to help you. In this video, we're going to look at trance sounds, right? We're going to have a look at the new track by Charlotte de Witte, High Street. It's just currently at #1 in the peak time techno chart, so a good reason to have a look at it. And we're going to have a look at the trance lead specifically and why it sounds so trancey and how you can do this for your own productions. So this is what we want to make to do in the video today. It's the lead of High Street by Charlotte de Witte. And let me just briefly go through all the elements we have here. So it's a 909 kick, distorted, a little bit of EQing, taking away some frequencies in the bass area, and then some compression on top. Some rumble from the peak time volume 2 sample pack on the shop. Link is up here. And then to finish it off, we have a clap also from the pack, a 909 head open and closed. So the closed head plays the 16th notes while the open head plays the offbeat. As always, Charlotte de Witte beats are very 909 oriented and very easy in a way, but therefore they're very straightforward and moving in a good way. So now here I have the MIDI prepared that we're going to use. So essentially we have an F sharp and a G, which has a lot of tension because it's only one semitone away from each other. And all this in F sharp minor. So G is actually not in the F sharp minor. If we have a look at this, like this, you can see that the G is actually not in the scale. It should rather be here if you want it to be in the scale. But using the G instead is what really adds a lot of tension to those kind of patterns. And then we have the 6th note of the scale, the D, which also has a lot of tension because it's just one step away from the perfect 5th. So this pattern is very full of energy and therefore actually very simple. So you can also see that there's a very easy velocity pattern. It always has 2 low velocity notes, and then the 3rd one is high velocity, and the 4th one is just not there, right? So it's basically a 16th note arpeggio kind of pattern sequence, but the 4th note in every quarter is always skipped, and therefore we have an emphasis on the offbeat. So now let's load Serum onto the track. I only have some sidechaining prepared here. And let's see how we can approach this. So this is what it sounds like from the very start. And first of all, I want to add the velocity over amplitude to the sound. So we have this emphasis that we wanted to have with the velocity, right? It's very important in Serum. From the start, if you open it, there's no velocity mapping, so you have to do it yourself like this, velocity over amp, and I control it with the macro 1 here. And now let's think a little bit what the general idea of the sound should be like. So we definitely want some unison, that's for sure. To make it feel very trancey, it immediately gives this feeling. And one thing that I have in my mind that should work very well is some pulse wave modulation here. Because it creates this nice texture and also takes away some lower frequencies that we don't need at all. It also adds a little bit of a low rumble, right? There's some low noise happening when you add the pulse wave modulation here. So this is why I want to add the EQ. You can also see it here on the volume meter. Like this, it's spiking very heavy. Like this, it doesn't all that much. We can still lower the volume a little bit. And let's go for the next steps. So what we can do next is add a filter, but we don't need all that much filtering. So I want to go to the MG low 6 dB per octave this time and be very high here. Just have a little bit of envelope. Won't really sound like there's happening all that much, but still just a little bit of movement is always important for almost any sound. And we can even add a little bit of white noise to make it even more crispy and have more higher frequencies. A little bit of drive, not too much. And now let's maybe add a second oscillator. And for sure, we also want to go unison this time here, because once again, we want this trancey feeling, this unison character of many voices. And for this one, I don't want to go with the pulse wave, but rather we can just use the bend minus, right, to bend it a little bit like this. And lowering the filter and just a little bit more drive. So this is more or less the sound that we want to have. So now let's come to the big question of how to actually make it feel trancey. Because right now, if I'm playing this, you will notice there's something different. Of course, it's a little louder, right? The filter is a little more open, but you can already hear that this kind of galloping is missing. And what this galloping is something actually very simple. It can be called trance gate. So what it does is, imagine you have your LFO on quarter right here, and you have little steps, maybe like this. So 4 steps in a quarter are now 16th, kind of, right? So if we would apply this, for example, to the amp, now let's see what happens. So basically we're shortening every note because this is one note. So let's make it even a little easier. We switch to 16th from the very beginning and we just go like this. So now we have just divided it down onto 1/16th note like this. And now we can play with the shape here to get exactly the kind of volume shape that we want. Right, everything is possible. It really depends on the track and what we want to have. Maybe something like this is working just fine for now. Yeah, and you can tell the very big difference. Right, so that's essentially the magic of such a trance gate sound, that we have some sort of volume modulation like this. Maybe also on the filter sometimes, but volume is definitely more common. And just for your understanding, since it's 16th notes anyway, you could also go in here on the amp envelope and lower all this. And you would kind of come up with something that is similar, but it's just way easier to have those LFOs set to a BPM, right? 16th, and now we can control perfectly the length of the notes, right? And also the shape, if it falls down quickly in volume, or it's more like a constant movement, or if it's like very loud for a long time and then suddenly falls down, right? So this is all very easy to control with the LFO. And for sure, just to show you, there's some tools that you can use as well. So a tool like Shaperbox makes it easier to work in complex patterns. And what I mean by that is, check this out. I'm making 16th notes here in this one bar. And now I want to implement some sort of rhythm. So this is the first offbeat. Let's say I want to go like this, and then this, and this. Now it's trying to not get confused. Like this, like this, like this. Now check this out. So essentially you could add extra rhythms with more complex shapes, which is a little bit difficult in the LFO tool, in the LFO here in Serum. So you might want to use Shaperbox or an LFO tool or something else that is similar for more complex rhythms, but the very easy 16th roll that we have works exactly like this. So to round the sound out now, what we want to do is add a little bit of phaser. Let's actually set it to BPM and to go maybe something like 4 bar or 8 bar. I don't want to move it too much. And also it should move a bit more in the higher frequencies, not too much feedback. Right, to create just this little bit of phasing in there, and then a little bit of tape saturation. You can also use this filter as the main filter, I would say. So we put it here on the macro 4, say cut off. And to round it all out, what we want is just a little bit of reverb, and the settings, of course, also depend on the track. So let me just go for something like this. I would even add another EQ here, because with the distortion we get a little bit more frequencies in the low area. Maybe even dip a little bit here and also take some away from the higher frequencies. We can boost therefore a little bit around like 8 to 10,000 maybe. So you can really hear how this just subtly squeezes the sound a little more in the right direction. And there we go. This is the trance lead in High Street by Charlotte de Witte. So follow the link in the description to get the preset that I made in this video for free. And yeah, have a good time. Keep making music and see you very soon.